Welcome to another episode of the Hyperion Adventures podcast. I'm here once again with my wife, Michelle.
Hello, Michelle.
Hey. My name's Tom. Each week we join you to talk about all things Disney, the parks, all the cruise line, Run Disney, everything based around Disney. And this week we are so excited because we have a guest with us that is just amazing.
The crowd goes wild.
Her name is Nicole. She worked at the Disney store from 2000 to 2008. She worked in guest relations as a VIP tour guide and hostess at the Disneyland Resort from 2008 to 2014. And I know she's going to have some fun stories to share with us. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you for having me.
Oh, it's so fun. This is great. We're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear the stories.
So let's get started here. We're going to go right back to the beginning. Where did your love from Disney come from when you first started?
Well, it had to have been from my dad when I was 7 years old, taking me to see The Little Mermaid.
Huh.
And that movie came out and we had the soundtrack, and I remember listening to the soundtrack over and over again, and I knew the songs before we seen the movie, and that's where it started. And then it just kept going and getting more and more and more and more and more.
And eventually it led to you actually wanting to work at Disneyland.
Yeah.
What inspired you to actually go there?
When I was in college, I worked at the Disney store right when I graduated high school. I remember going into the Disney store at age 16, like, are you hiring? And you have to be 18. I was like, please, you don't understand. I love it.
Really?
So
I didn't know you had to be 18 to work at the Disney store. It's
yeah. So I waited until I turned 18, and then they finally, yes, you can get hired, but we're not hiring at this store. So anyway, I worked at, where did I start? Horton Plaza in downtown. Okay. But when I was in college, they had us do a speech in my speech class about how to teach someone how to do something. It could be anything on earth, but teach somebody a task. And I thought, what can I teach anybody? How to have a fun and efficient day at Disneyland. I can do that. And so I did a PowerPoint presentation. I did all of my special tips and all, how to get Fast Pass, because back then you had to go get them. Right. And at the end of the class, I just did that for fun, for me. And everyone was like, can you please take us to Disneyland? We'll do anything. I thought, gosh, there should be a job where people do this. And then I found out that there was. Wow. And I was like, I have to do that. And when I was after I was like getting closer and closer to finishing college, I was like, I'm going to apply at Disneyland. I'm going to do it. And a lot of people said, you probably won't get into guest relations. It's a really esteemed thing. You probably won't be able to do it right away, but maybe you will. And so I applied. I got my degree in music education. And then overnight, I was a Disneyland tour guide. Like a week later. I had to do it.
Sweet. All right. Well, going on that theme, what goes into the training for being a tour guide or a VIP tour guide?
Yeah, when it starts, it's kind of, you have to learn everything. And I thought I knew everything already. I knew all the attractions. I knew where everything was, but I didn't know the names of every store and every restaurant. Wow. I was like, I'm going to have to, I can learn that. I can do that. But it's just a crash course on everything Disneyland related. Guest relations, you have to know everything about not just the parks, but the hotels, surrounding area. So you walk the parks, and then you learn the information board, and we had a phone room at that time. We don't anymore. Right. And that's where you, like, as you're working, you start to develop more and more knowledge, and then you can learn guided tours if you want, and that you get what we call a D pin that you wear above your name tag. Nice. Once you learn your guided tour. And that's what made you like official in the department. Wow. Because there would be guests that would say, oh, I have a question. Oh, you don't have a D pin. You probably won't know the answer.
Oh my gosh.
Because they just
snooty.
Yeah. I mean, oh, you're not D pins. You must be new.
You're earning your ears, aren't you?
Yeah, I know.
Now I feel like I have to go congratulate everybody who has a D pin.
But yeah, no, it's really special. I remember when I got when I got interviewed, they were only hiring for, I think, stores and attractions.
Wow.
And during the group interview, the lady said, you kind of have more of a fit for guest relations. And I was like, oh, I do.
Oh.
Thank you. So they found a guest relations manager to do a second interview.
Nice.
And I think the thing that I said when he said, why do you want to work here? I said, I love Disneyland more than some people love their family. And I think that kind of stuck with him. And he was like, I think she might be a fit for the department.
Cool.
But back then, you didn't really get hired what they called off the street. They like tour guides, you have to get hired somewhere else, work there 6 months and maybe transfer over. But they hired me in. So then when they would introduce me to new people, like, this is a new hire. Her name's Nicole. She's from the street. She's off the street.
She's not really one of us yet.
Yeah. And I would always say, well, I've been with the store since 2000. So I kind of know a little bit. And, it's just how it was.
That's funny.
But
So how long did it take you to get from where you're first into guest relations to where you actually get that deep?
I think I started in June, and I think I was D-pinned probably by September. I got my D-pin on, back then we had a Segway tour called Cruisin's Disney's California Adventure Tour.
Wow.
And so I not only got to learn how to ride a Segway, but I got to learn all the information about California Adventure for the tour. It was such a fun tour, but it started at 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
That was the only bad thing about it.
Not enough coffee in the world.
No. And I lived in San Diego, so I had to wake up at 3:30 for my
goodness.
shift.
Wow.
Good thing you had to wear a helmet to be on the Segway, so I didn't have to really make my hair look that great.
Right,
so at least I
And you avoid that Orange County traffic.
Yeah,
at that time,
exactly.
right? So-
Yeah, no one's on the road, so that was good. That was such a fun experience. And then I was so lucky, and I got to learn the holiday time at Disneyland tour, which became my favorite tour because it was about how Disneyland celebrated the holidays and traditions around the world. And I always just loved that backstage information, like how they decorate the park and all the ornaments on the trees and how they even come up with how they're going to theme holiday decorations. Like I love all of that stuff. I think that's why I wanted to work at Disneyland, was because I wanted to see it backstage. I wanted to see how they make things work. So that was super fun. Things like that.
Right. So, going on the tours, we've done a couple of them at both parks, at both West Coast and East Coast. And one of our favorite things was Walt's apartment.
Oh, yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
When I first stepped into Walt's apartment, you feel these goosebumps. It's like you can feel his presence in there. It's such a small, tiny place, but once the door opens, it's like you feel this energy just come. Like he stepped foot in here. This is his special place, and I never felt that. I love Walt Disney World, but I don't get that same connection anywhere there. But it was just such a special thing. And when they told me I was going to get to give tours of Walt's apartment, are you sure? Me?
I know,
are you sure? And that was just so amazing. And I think one of the coolest things is, as a VIP guide, sometimes you get to do tours of groups of people that are coming to the park to get research. So they're coming, maybe they're going to be in a movie and they need information for their role, or maybe they're an executive from Walt Disney World and they need to learn about how things work at Disneyland. So sometimes when you're a VIP guide, you're going to bring them up to Walt's apartment, but they already have a guide of Walt's apartment, and it's like an Imagineer. And so not only are you in Walt's apartment, you're in Walt's apartment with these special guests, and you get to listen to an Imagineer talk about Disneyland, specific interactions with Walt Disney. And so that's it's awesome as a guide, because not only you're doing minimal work because you're not giving the tour, but you're also sitting back and just listening to all the knowledge and pretending like you're not super excited, but inside you're like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. You pretend like you're really, yes, absolutely. But inside you're freaking out. It's, you can't read any of those stories in books. It's just being there at that moment. So it was really amazing.
Yeah, when we were lucky enough to go do that tour and we got up to the apartment, you just see Michelle racing up the stairs. She was like, I couldn't wait to get up there. And she got to ring the bell to go in and everything. She nearly brought her tears just doing that.
I get choked up now. So.
Yeah, and then going in there and just like you said, you can just picture Walt just sitting there, just looking out the park. Yeah, and his little cans of chili.
Yeah,
and the little,
I know.
Kitchenette area.
Yeah. I remember as when we had to go up there for training or anything, people would always blow on the curtains to so if there were guests staring up, they'd be like, is Walt in there? There's a ghost. Because they wouldn't see you, but they'd see things moving inside.
Oh my gosh.
There was one of the coolest things, I got to learn the Happiest Haunts tour as well. And during that guided training, that training experience, they want you to become the best storyteller you can be. Because when you do a haunts tour, you want to like kind of creep people out, you know?
Yes.
So we would practice telling ghost stories, and we would tell them in Walt's apartment or other places.
wow.
But one time it was Walt's apartment, and it was at night, so it was already kind of creepy in there.
Right.
And one of the tour guides was like hiding in there, and we didn't know. And so we were all going around doing ghost stories, and the kitchen had opened, and we were like, but it was just like silly things like that, like memories like that. And I remember also I would like to call people from Walt's apartment because on their phone it would say Walt's apartment. So if I knew someone from Walt Disney World, I'd call them and be like, "How Walt's calling me?" You know, just that. Even though you know, it's just that thing, like when you see it on your phone,
prompt.
like, oh, that's so cool.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
So you also got to overlook the Dream Suite at times. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, we've never been in the Dream Suite. What can you tell us about the Dream Suite?
Oh, the Dream Suite is so special. I remember when they first built it, I wasn't working at the park yet, but they were giving tours of it to annual pass holders. And one of my friends got to go on a tour and asked me if I wanted to go, but I had something that I had to do that night. So I remember driving all the way to Disneyland, doing a 20-minute tour, and then getting on the road and leaving because I cared about the park so much that I would drive that far.
Right.
But when I first saw it, there's so many magical things in it. And we talked about the bird on the fireplace that they also have in the studios that inspire the Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. But you see all these things, these little nuances, the details that don't really need to be there but are there. And I remember seeing it as a guest thinking like, this is the coolest place. And then when I got to work there, it was like you just feel this like ownership of it, like this belongs to me in a way, like I get to be a part of this. And you know, when you do overnight shifts, they can seem not as magical because you don't get to be with your guests as much because they're sleeping for half of your shift.
Right.
But you also got to give the guests tours of the park when the park was closed. So they get to walk through, and you take all these pictures of them like doing all these cool poses around the park. And it's things like that that are so special because the guests love you automatically.
Sure.
Like you're just doing your job, but like you're showing them Disneyland, so they already love you, and you're just like, be in the castle, like, and you get to be a photographer. Give me life. Oh, you look so good. Like, don't do this. Get on the floor. And then you're like on the floor taking all these shots, and it's just so special. I know that one, not me, but back when it was a year of a million dreams,
Right.
I remember there was a couple that came to the park, and the boyfriend was planning on proposing to his girlfriend at the park, and they magically won the Dream Suite that night.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's the luckiest guy on earth. He had the
Right?
ring. He's like, I guess I'll wait till later.
Yeah.
So they did the after hours tour, and the guy placed him in front of the castle for a photo, and he dropped to his knees to propose.
Oh my
I mean,
goodness.
I think
Wow.
cast members get just as much out of it as
Sure,
guests. I mean, it's just amazing. You can't plan for things. It just magical things just happen there.
Nice.
So they also do sometimes special events at the Dream Suite. Certain celebrities or people or just events that they'll have there. It was fun being a part of that too, because you're the go-to person. You grab everything, you just make things happen, and it's so fun to like just be able to do that. And you know, I think Disneyland kind of ruins any other job for you after that because you're just like, oh, this person, they need this food right now. Club 33, I need you to deliver me this food. And like it's just so cool. Like just things like that are just so funny.
So I don't know if a lot of our listeners know this, and I didn't know this up until I think your father, who I work with, had told me about this, that you would stay there, you just mentioned it, you would stay in the Dream Suite and kind of watch it overnight when they had guests there. So, I mean, basically, what did that entail? Was it just kind of to be there in case they had something they needed at any time? Or?
Yeah, there always has to be someone working there, just in any event. Sometimes, it never happened to me, thankfully. Pirates of the Caribbean shares a wall with the Dream Suite, and sometimes they'd have a fire alarm go off at night, just because there's people working there. There's people all over the park working at night, and sometimes things just happen, and so if there is a fire alarm, you need to evacuate, get them out of there. Luckily, that never happened to me, because that would be so unmagical. But and I'm all about the magic. Get up! Don't panic! We have to leave. Yeah, I'm all about the magic. I don't like bad things like that. But yeah, though most of the time it was give them this tour and get them to bed. Is there anything else you need from me? And then they would fall asleep, and then you kind of have nothing else to do, so you watch YouTube videos or put on a
Right.
DVD, but you can't sleep. So, but I feel like for me, being like so into the magic, it was like I just want to take in all of these moments. Like there's nothing for me to do, but I'm in Disneyland at
Right.
night, like hearing all these weird sounds. Like you still hear Tarzan's treehouse music and
Oh,
like
wow.
the is it a panther or a cheetah? You know, the villain in that movie?
Yeah.
And you can hear
right.
it's like scary, like
Oh my
gnarling,
gosh.
growling. And then you just hear things and you're like, is it a ghost? Like just things like
Too
that.
cool.
It's just so fun.
Yeah.
But that's just the magic of the park, I guess.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
amazing that it still goes on throughout the night.
I remember one of my first shifts at Disneyland. I had to get there like 6 in the morning, and I could hear because City Hall shared a wall with Adventureland, and so Jungle
Right.
Cruise was on the other side. But I was new and I didn't really know that, and I would hear the like from the Jungle Cruise, and I was like, "Is that like a radio? Why is it repeating?"
Oh
And
my
that's the
gosh.
Jungle Cruise. I'm like, why is it on? It's only 6 in the morning. Like, we don't open yet.
We were there for one of our, we were doing the Walk in Walt's Footsteps tour,
Right.
and we were sitting there waiting over by the guided tour pavilion there in the garden area. And you could hear the guns going crack, crack,
Yeah,
crack.
yeah. I know.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's
The
right
Jungle Cruise is
there.
right
Yeah,
there.
but
Right.
isn't it so cool that you wouldn't know that? You look
Right.
that way, you see
Yeah,
nothing
you have no idea.
Adventureland related.
Right.
Like I remember when I learned the Cultivating the Magic tour, which was all about the plant life at Disneyland. They would talk so much about how the plant life is themed to each land as well.
Right.
Again, like so much more detail than it needs to really be because
Right.
no one really thinks about it. But when you're in Frontierland, there's this giant tree that when you're standing a certain way, it kind of hides the Matterhorn. And it's
Oh,
almost as
no.
if they do it on
Wow.
purpose so that you can't see that land, because when you're in
Very cool.
Frontierland or New Orleans, you don't want to see that.
Right.
And then so when you're in Fantasyland, you can't see any of the other stuff either. It's just because the plant life grows so big, it's almost like they
Wow.
purposely do it to like keep everything else out.
Well, when we were in Walt Disney World on one of the tours, they explained this to us, and you probably had this same thing. It's when you go in through the gates to go in, and the train station's there and everything. That's like the curtain, and then you go through the tunnel, and then the curtain rises, and
Yeah.
then there's Main Street and the castle right in front of you.
Yeah.
And then the names on the buildings as you go down. And if you haven't done it before, go walk down Main Street and just look at the names on the buildings. Those are like the credits rolling. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've explained that
All
to
of the
them.
windows on
Yeah.
Main Street
Right.
are themed to a specific person. But I remember one anniversary working at Disneyland. I don't remember if it's the 58th or whatever. I was just feeling like so unmagical that day. I don't know why. I was just super bummed out. I was having the worst day. Nothing is wrong. I'm working at
Right,
Disneyland. There's a
right.
parade right over there, but I'm
Right.
still feeling like kind of grumpy. And my manager said, Nicole, I need you to do something important. We have a last minute important guest. I need you to give a tour of all of the windows of Main Street and then a Walt apartment tour and a Dream Suite tour. And I was like, I guess I'm magical today. Like, I guess the magic has, like that movie, How Stella Got Her Groove Back. It's like how Nicole got her magic back.
Wow.
Right? I got to give this tour. And it's just so like great. You're right. Like bringing up the windows, just
Right.
seeing those little magic touches. Is
Yeah,
super.
it really is amazing because you go through and there's all those names and they all had something to do in some way, shape, or form with Disneyland, with Walt Disney World. It's really incredible.
And I love how they pay homage to all of those
Right.
Right.
important people.
And even
Right.
even in some of the attractions, if you go to the Haunted Mansion, for example, a lot of the headstones and such are some of the Imagineers and other parts that helped create those rides.
Right.
It's really great.
And they have a Mary Blair doll inside of It's a Small World too.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
She's holding a balloon up at the in the top, like the second room, I think. But there's not really a light that shines on her, so you wouldn't really see her.
Oh, wow.
But she
We'll have
almost
to
looks
check
like
on
she's
that.
made out of paper mache or something.
Oh.
It's just so cool that
I had no idea.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
she's inside her own attraction. Like it's just so cool.
Right.
Yeah.
That is
Very
great.
cool.
That is great.
So, you're talking about how you need to feel magical and things. So I would think that they do some guest events. I mean, some cast member events. So what kind of things can you share with us about that?
Yeah, I think after like a busy summer, they would always do it between September or maybe August, September. They would do like a cast member recognition event, like thank you for working such a hard summer. We
Nice.
know it was busy, and they would do different things like they'd close Fantasyland, and we'd get to ride a couple attractions there, and they would always have a theme. It was like a hoedown one year, like a masquerade ball one year, but one year they got all of the guest relations cast members on the Mark Twain riverboat.
Oh, wow.
And we got to just tour around at night. The park is closed. We're on our own private
wow.
boat. They have
Very nice.
mocktails and a
Right.
DJ, and everyone's dancing and just having a fun time. Some people are in costumes, some are not. And I remember I went up to the DJ and requested my favorite band, which is Hanson. And they were like, wait, you want me to play Mbop? And I was like, yeah, I think people will really like
Right.
it. And they played it, and it was just like, for me, I know it's only me, but like I'm listening to my favorite song and my favorite place where no one else is going to get to do this experience with all these magical people. The park is closed. I'm enjoying this attraction, and everything's just so beautiful. So it's just like little things like that that are just memories forever, you know, just silly things like that.
No, that's awesome.
But
No,
it's so
I
cool.
totally
Totally
get
jealous.
it. I mean, because we've been on one of the tours at Walt Disney World, and we're walking down Liberty Square, and there's nobody there because the park has it's not even rope drop yet.
Yeah.
So there's nobody there, and it's just you're the only person in the world experiencing that at that time, and it just feels like you said, it's magical.
Right.
just
It's like you
absolutely
want to
magical.
bottle it. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, this is just so amazing.
There's a quote in the Walt apartment tour that Walt talks about Disneyland because you look out his window, and when there was no one in the park. I mean, I don't want to use the word dead because that sounds kind of morbid, but the park is super magical already. And for us, like, we love seeing it with no guests in the park, but what really brings the park to life is seeing all the guests in the park. So he would always say the magic doesn't start until the guests come in, because that's when the show comes to life.
Right.
And it's true when you look out the windows and you just see the people like having fun and running around. But for people like us who like that backstage stuff and feeling that, I mean, I always feel that when there's no one else in the park. And like, we would do every year we would have a guest relations photo shoot. So I mean, if you wanted to come in at 6 or 5, you could be in the photo.
Nice.
And they'd always pose you in front of whatever was new that year. One year was Ariel's undersea attraction. But when it was in front of the castle, one of the first years I worked there, we would get there early, like at 6, and then take a picture in front of the castle. And then when we were done, we would just like linger and take pictures in front of random things, the wishing well or the tiki room. I think I have one that I brought. Anyway, as I throw it across. But just being a part of it in there, and then kind of seeing how things come to life. I remember one morning I was walking to work, and they were lowering one of the elephants for the Jungle Cruise back into the attraction because the park that attraction had been closed, and I guess they were refurbishing the elephant. So they have this crane, they're lowering an elephant down into. And I'm like, no other job in the world when I see like a flying elephant coming in, like, it's really ruined the rest of life.
Right.
There's nothing else.
So based on that, what is your favorite attraction still at Disneyland?
Okay.
It's like picking your favorite child.
Yes,
Right?
yeah. Luckily, I only have one, so that's not bad. There's something about Splash Mountain. I don't know what it is. I really love it. But truly and honestly, in the historical aspect of the park, Enchanted Tiki Room and It's a Small World. There's just something about both of them. I just feel that connection to Walt. And I mentioned to you before how my favorite photograph of Walt Disney is the one of him underneath Jose in the Tiki Room, because it's called Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room because he funded that one himself. Every other attraction, every other thing, it would say like sponsored by this or, Kodak presents, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But that one, he paid for it himself because he knew that technology was going to be the next step in storytelling. Nice. And so with that sparkle in his eye and the magic is working, all of the animatronics are working, he's just so proud of it. And seeing him proud of something he helped to develop is just so amazing to see him. He's just so wonderful.
Well,
on that, still alive.
You're a Walt historian. Basically, you have to kind of be in the job. But so what's maybe some unknown thing about Walt that you could share out there that would really you really enjoy?
So one thing I loved about Walt was people would tell him when Disneyland was getting more popular, they would tell him, you should run for political office. And he would say, why be the governor or the senator of somewhere when you can be the king of Disneyland? And I love that about him.
That's great.
Yeah. He knew what he was doing. And I know that there's some films out there that don't show him in the best light, but I feel like in order to succeed in your craft, you kind of have to make decisions. And and that's what I love about him is he wasn't afraid to believe in his in what he knew was going to work. Like if it was me, I'd be like, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't know if this is really going to work, but he believed in himself. And it's just amazing to see that. There's a quote in the show Wings. I only know it because my husband loves that show, where they said Walt Disney. There's people out there that just get whatever they want, and I was like, you don't know anything about Walt Disney. He didn't get anything he wanted. He had to work for it. You know. I mean, he had a vacation home that he mortgaged to build Disneyland. You know, it's not like he had all this money to build Disneyland. He almost went bankrupt. He actually forged a lot of the documents, and Roy helped him with the financial backing of Disneyland. I mean, they made a few you know, and you know, it's funny. Roy, like I said, he did a lot of the financial backing, but when he would go to sleep, Walt would get out certain things and edit things.
No,
we have to have gold leafing on the castle, and no, we do not need. Yes, we do. Okay, we can't afford it. Okay, fine, put it to bed, and then okay, we're gonna get the gold leafing. I'm just gonna edit this document. He'll never know. You know, things like that. It's just so
great
cool.
brother stories.
I know. But what else is really cool about Walt is when Disneyland opened in 1955, he was the one giving tours of Disneyland. So dignitaries, celebrities, just important guests that he wanted to schmooze, he would bring him in and tour him. And then he got to be really busy. He was a very popular man. And so in 1959 is when he founded the tour guide program. So he hired the very first tour guide and hand-selected her. Her name was Cicely Rigdon. And she was the one who got all the tour guides together. And it was a different time. I mean, they picked all females. They had to be very attractive and skinny. I mean, I don't even think they allowed men into the department until the late 70s.
Wow.
And when I hired in, they told me that a size 12 was the biggest the skirt went. So if you were bigger, you're not a tour guide.
Wow.
Goodbye.
Wow.
Then they would say it like that. Goodbye. So, and I was a size 12 at one point, during my pregnancy, and I was like, I'd be the fattest kid in the department. But I mean, it was a different time, hand selected. But just amazing to see how it's evolved from there, that he had his hands in that department and it's still going strong. And it's amazing. I'm a lot like Cicely Rigdon because when she got her first job at Disneyland, she was so excited she crashed into her garage on the way home from that would be me. I'm so excited. I'm not even thinking about the world around me.
I'm not excited just when we go to Disneyland.
I know. I know. When you pull into the parking structure, you're like, I'm about to give someone $20, but it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
I'm about to break my bank account on this annual pass and then all the food,
but
and it's okay.
I know, but it's all right. I know. So
well,
silly.
talking about food, now Pixar Pier opened up this weekend. What are your thoughts about that?
I love that they finally have shown some of the movies that we all love, but are just not. They're not out there. Like WALL-E, we love WALL-E.
Yes.
You know, seeing there's a Heimlich. Did you guys see the photos of the games on the boardwalk?
Right.
Yeah, I love it. They pay homage to so many of them, and even the shorts before the movies are kind of in there. But the best part about Pixar Pier to me is that they finally created a food guide. They always have had a map and an entertainment schedule. You know, that's important stuff. People need to know how to get to the attractions and know when the show is. But I want to know where I should eat. Where should I give my special calories to? What is the best food? And it's all detailed in one place.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah, it is.
We needed that.
I noticed that coming up. They posted that on social media recently, and I was like, yes, that's brilliant.
Yes,
finally.
Finally.
Right.
I'm not going to use it up on this funnel cake when I got this other thing down here.
I know.
Exactly.
Have you had the lobster nachos? That's what everyone talks about.
My goodness,
We love the lobster nachos.
Okay. So they are worth it.
They are.
Definitely.
They're crazy good. I mean, okay. They're a little bit of it's lobster, so it's maybe they're not worth kind of the price you're paying for them, but they're pretty darn good.
Yeah.
They're pretty darn good.
Yeah.
But that bar, at least before when it was the Cove bar, to wait to get in there, we would just have to plot out our day. It's like, okay, we're just going to go ahead and have a cocktail at around 10:30, 11 o'clock because otherwise we're going to be waiting in line for an hour and a half. There's no reservation. I don't know what the Lamplighter Lounge is going to be like now. I know there are some reservations for there, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out in the future.
I've seen a lot of my people I used to work with on social media post their photos of trying it out, and it just looks incredible. Can I work there again so I can try it out?
I know, right?
I miss it. That was what was really cool too when you worked there is they'd be like, okay, Star Tours is reopening. They need practice. Can you just go on the ride real quick? Okay.
Right.
Do I have to?
Do I get paid for this? Okay, just making sure.
I'm going to test it again.
Yeah. I know. And when Cars Land opened, I remember that too. They were like, we need people. Go to Cars Land. I remember that because when you're a guided tour guide and when you're a VIP guide, you always wear like the skirt and the jabot and the pantyhose. But when they were testing it, they had to have everyone wear pants for some reason. So I was like, I'll go get pants. I can go. I'll go get them. It's okay that I'm on the clock. I'll go get pants, and then I'll go on the ride, and then I'll come back and work. Just silly things. But
nice.
Yeah, we had we shared last week some cast members from Walt Disney World that went on the Slinky Dog coaster at Toy Story Land. And it really looks fun. I'm looking forward to being able to get out there and experience that sometime soon.
So bad.
Have you been to Walt Disney World?
I have. I've been a couple times, but I haven't been in a while. It's been a while.
Right.
But my son is a little bit too young to go on. Like, I'm not going to take him all the way there for the tiki room because we have one here.
Right.
When he gets a little older, I'll go again.
The tiki room in Southern California, Disneyland Resort, is the original and the better one anyway. Right. The other one's fine, and it's still an experience we do every time we go. But look at her; she's like, she doesn't like it as much. Like she's like, no.
Well, no, I like both of them. There's a little slight difference. It's an equipment issue. They had where the fountain goes up, that tube that flowed the water broke, and apparently they had no way to really replicate that.
Oh, yeah, that sounds about right.
Right.
It's amazing the day of 3D printing or whatever that they haven't been able to recreate that part of it.
So that's the only little thing that's different. They did have different versions for a while, but they're back to the traditional one. We saw that recently.
Right. But we like the original. I mean, it's the stuff that Walt actually experienced. Walt, got to experience.
Right.
The tiki room. You got to experience Small World.
Right.
The one thing that we do like about Walt Disney World is that they still have the Carousel of Progress there, which is the only thing in Walt Disney World that Walt actually rode in.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
that's why I know it's kind of out of the way. It doesn't get a lot of people in there all the time, but you should experience it if you go to Walt Disney World, just because that is the one place there that Walt actually experienced himself.
And then you'll be singing the song the rest of the day.
Yes.
There's a great big...
We were at a wine tasting last year that happened to, we got lucky enough, it was Gogi Wines, which is Kurt Russell's winery.
Cool.
And he presented for us. It was unannounced,
Right.
but we were lucky enough he presented for us. And right in the middle of it, he broke into "It's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow." And I was like, oh, why didn't I have the video on my camera going at that
where are the
point?
cameras?
Oh, so great.
That's amazing.
So what's one of your favorite facts about Disneyland that you would love to share with some of your tour guests?
Hold on, because I'm not prepared, because you said favorite, and I have so many. Oh, God.
You can go ahead and go down the list.
No, oh gosh, I can't right now. I'm so sorry.
That's
I need
okay.
a second to think about
That's
it.
okay. I'm sorry. I caught you off guard.
No,
No,
it's
not
okay.
at all.
But can I say one thing?
Yeah.
That we were just talking about the tiki room and how it was under new management with Zazu.
Right.
Okay, you guys probably didn't like that as much.
No.
Yeah, I didn't. That was the first time I saw it in Walt Disney World. I didn't see the original one there, but I walked in and the girl in front of me said, "I'm so glad it's under new management. The seats were so uncomfortable last time."
No.
And I was like, I don't think Zazu put in new seats. I don't think Iago isn't really a manager.
Funny.
I'll just let you think that. You're so cute. But no, I'm glad that isn't no longer.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm glad they
I
switched
can
it
tell
back
you
to
something
it.
now.
Okay.
I thought about it. Okay.
Okay.
So in the Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, let's bring it back to my favorite attraction. One of my favorite things about it is that, okay, so there's so many different audio animatronics in the park, Pirates of the Caribbean, Haunted Mansion. But the most expensive animatronics are the ones in the Tiki Room because they're made of cashmere, because the birds actually breathe. If you watch them when they sing, they breathe. And when they all had feathers on them, they would breathe so much that they would end up becoming bald because they would lose so many feathers. And they were thinking, gosh, we have to come up with something because we're kind of replacing this every 5 minutes. And they were watching Walt Disney tell a story, and he was always so animated when he would tell stories. He would act everything out with his hands, and he would wear cashmere sweaters, and they were watching the material like, okay, he's separating, it's coming back together. It's separating, it's coming back together. We need to get cashmere for these birds. And so they remade them all with cashmere, and it's just so cool that the smallest animatronic is the most expensive and kind of most intricate ones in the park. So I love that.
That is cool.
So for those of you who just tend to skip by the Tiki Room, maybe you have a better appreciation for it next time you go. It's one of my favorites. And one thing, I mean, we're getting to summer now. If nothing else,
It's
grab a
air
Dole Whip.
conditioned.
It's cool. It's like a, what's a 7-10 minute show? Go in there, cool down, relax, have a Dole Whip, enjoy the singing.
Right.
I mean, it's one of my favorite things too.
Right.
Definitely. So obviously you've gone past this. Now you're living a new life. You have a husband, beautiful young son, and you're very happy with where you are. But is there ever a little bit of you that misses your job?
I miss it every minute of every day. And I can't wait till my son's older and I can really explain, like, I quit because of you. Like, if he ever treats me bad, I'm going to say, you're the reason I don't work there anymore. No, I miss it every day. And especially because I'm still friends with so many friends on Facebook that still work there. And, when they were building Star Wars Land, all of the cast members got to sign their name on, like, just a beam.
Right.
It's only a beam, but it's still the fact that their name is on that beam.
Exactly.
And I'm like, they worked there during that time. That name is going to go on in history forever on that beam. Just things like that. Like, that could have been me. Like, just it's silly things like that. I got the opportunity to walk through the Haunted Mansion before during Jack Skellington taking over it and regular Haunted Mansion. And I did sign my name on a book in there. So I don't know if it's still there. But it just things like that, getting to see things before they open or just that kind of stuff. I miss all of that. Even just the regular City Hall shift where people are like, the parade didn't happen or it's raining. Like, just even dealing with just guests that are upset, like, and fixing it, making it magical again. Like, I miss all of it, just being a part of it. I miss the costume. It was so uncomfortable. I miss everything about it. Wow. So, and that's why I try to take my son as much as possible so that he can fall in love with it like me. And I think he did. So I think I'm successful on that.
When your son gets older, would you go back?
Yeah, I would go back in a heartbeat. But they have all these strict rules. Like, if you like lost a costume piece or they have like a no rehire status. And I know that like I've probably lost a jabot, like the thing that you wear around your neck. And I'm like, gosh, if I don't get to be rehired over a jabot, I'm gonna be so upset. Like, I'll pay for the jabot. Right. So I hope that my record card is good because actually, I lived in San Diego the whole time I worked there, so I was late a lot. So I didn't have the best record card towards the end. I became a tour guide and then I became a lead for a really long time. And then they have a point system. So if you're late a certain amount of times, you get written up and then they'll take away your lead status. And that did happen to me because I was late so much. It was so hard to get there on time.
Traffic.
Like, it's 100 miles.
Right.
Yeah, that's a long commute.
And it's not just like the back roads. It's like always a traffic-y spot.
Yeah. Oh, we know. We go enough.
You know it. Like, it was hard, but yes, I would go back in a minute. Like, I probably was not making that much money if you think about gas.
Right.
And how much, I mean, the pay. I don't want to talk about pay, but like I probably wasn't making that much money back then. So I still feel like I would pay them to work there.
Nice.
Like I feel like they paid you in smiles.
Wow. Do you still remember like your orientation? Mm-hmm. Because I've heard that's pretty magical to people.
Yeah, I think what's so magical about it is, you go through the whole day where the trainers are teaching you, like, look at this lamppost, it's themed to this land, and look at this trash can, it's themed. Right. And I'm not trying to be like a jerk, but I was like, I already know that. Right. Like, I've come to the park enough, I've absorbed all of this enough, I feel it. You don't need to teach me how to feel it, I already feel it. But then you'd go through this whole shift where you feel like you already know everything, and then Mickey Mouse comes in to give you your name tag.
Oh,
and
my
gosh.
God.
Oh, this is so magical. My boss is here.
Right?
Like, it just, it was just so special.
Sure.
But to me, that like training for the tours was the most magical because and for being a VIP guide, we called that Barbie boot camp because you would wear your heels for an 8-hour shift and they would just take you everywhere, how to enter every attraction, how to exit every attraction, where you would bring your guests, and then let's go to Tarzan's treehouse in your heels just so that you can practice on your heels, and like just things like that, and you didn't have to look the part. I mean, you got to brush your hair and just like silly dumb things that people probably already know, but just like all those things. I mean, I learned more from that job and those trainings than I could have learned anywhere else. Wow. I mean, cool. I mean, just, And you learn how to be flexible, because I remember coming to a VIP hostess shift, they'd be like, okay, your guests really want to go on Peter Pan. The entrance is closed right now. So you're going to have to go over here, over there, and then go over there to this little, and you're like, wait, what? Like,
Right.
and so you literally are like, okay, I'm going to make this happen. How am I going to do this? And you just, as you're walking, you're pretending like you know what's going on, even though you have no idea where you're going.
Right.
And then you tell a story to your guests and you're there. And like, it just magically happens. So I feel like
Very
anything
cool.
that happens in life, I can figure it out.
Right, right.
Like, I figured out how to get to this ride when it wasn't even open. Or like, your guests really want to go on Indiana Jones. Okay, let's go all the way to Indiana Jones. It's closed. Okay, we can make magic. We can figure something out.
Nice.
Just things
Wow.
like that.
Wow. Well, we could talk to you forever. I mean,
Right.
this is, I'm not even getting started on all the stuff we would talk about. I hope
Right.
maybe you would join us again. If it's
I would love to.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's so
Awesome.
great, Nicole. But before we go, we always close out with tips for our listeners of whether it be the parks, the cruise line, Run Disney, whatever. And we figure we have a real insider
I
here.
haven't been there in 4 years.
You have to have the perfect tip for people
The tip
out
that
there.
you tell your friends when they're.
If you're not, we can
saying
give a
they're
couple
coming.
tips first if you want to think
Yeah,
about
you
it.
give some tips. I
Okay.
want to know what kind of things you give.
Okay, we'll start with Michelle. Always starts for us. So Michelle, what
Okay.
have your tip?
Before I give my tip, though, I do want to say a little bit about Comic-Con. San Diego's getting ready for that. The trolleys are already starting to be all decked out for Comic-Con, which is an exciting time here. And I know a lot of people like to get in cosplay and go out there. So just wanted to give a little piece of information that came out is that the street in front of the convention center is going to be closed for anything with
Harbor?
wheels. Harbor, right. So that means even bicycles, skateboards, or scooters. So the only thing with wheels that will be allowed on that road from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. will be the city buses that are dropping people off.
Okay.
So that's going to be good because I know when we've gone to Comic-Con, sometimes you can wait forever just to try to cross that street. But the other thing is you can't cross that street if you don't have to
Oh,
So-
I'm not even going to let you even.
Right. So if you don't
attempt
have
to
a
sneak
badge,
in.
you're going to be in the gas lamp. So
It's good to know.
right. But so I have a tip ready, and it's really regarding if you have a reservation, a resort reservation at any of the Disney parks. It's go back every once in a while and see if they've updated some, better pricing. Because you can do that online on the spot, and I know we've had that happen to us. A friend of mine, that happened to her recently. She went on and, had the reservation already set with her deposit, and it dropped $400, and she made the change online instantly.
Nice.
So, right. So if you have those reservations, it's really simple to do. Just keep going online to the My Disney Experience and checking the reservation. And what you do is you hit change. And then if there are other offers available, they'll come up, and then you can select the change and process it, and it'll bring you the better price.
Yeah, Disney releases packages all the time.
Right.
Maybe not when you booked your room, it may not have been there, but later on they come up with them, and you can always change it, offering discounts, sometimes offering even free dining. We've seen
Right.
that happen before, other such things. So yeah, take advantage of that. My tip this week is we just reached the first day of summer, was just this last week. So it's getting hot in the parks now. Walt Disney World is already up in the 90s. It may push into 100 coming up here. And we know the 1,000,000% humidity there. Disneyland, it gets hot as well. I'm sure, Nicole, you know that,
It's
how
hot.
warm it can be there. So it's a very simple tip out there. One, just stay hydrated. You can bring water into the parks, as much water as you want. Bring it in. You can bring a bottle, drink it, refill it at a fountain. At Walt Disney World, I know at least in Pandora, and I think they're starting to come up with some other places, they actually have water bottle filling stations you can do there. If you don't do that, or if you run out or whatever, go to any place where they're serving a fountain drink. You can get a free cup of water. No charge. They don't charge you for the cup. They don't charge you for anything. Just go there and get water. But please stay hydrated. I mean, especially to get the kids hydrated. It can be very hot. It's a long day. Everybody gets tired as it is. If they're dehydrated as well, it can really mess up your trip to any of the Disney parks. So that's just my tip for this week.
And in first aid, it's always cold water. That's
Oh,
even better
right.
because
Good
there
to
are
know.
there are fountains around the park, but you want to go to first aid for the
Yes.
good cold water. So for me, and you've probably mentioned this before, one thing I took my son to the park, and we didn't really want to stay for the fireworks because it was kind of late, and we didn't realize we parked on the top level, and we watched the fireworks from there,
yeah.
and so we were already like by
Oh,
our cars.
wow,
We didn't have to
right.
like fight any traffic. So there's cool. You don't have to stand in front of the castle for fireworks and the parade. There's a lot more space by Small World for the parade and New Orleans Square for the fireworks, because you can still hear the music, and you can see it in the Esplanade, and you can still kind of hear the music. So my tip would be, if you don't mind it being like, if you don't have to be right in front of the castle for a show, experience other places that might be less impacted, because then your exit of the park might be a little easier.
Right. Well, that's
In case.
Perfect. I
Good.
like that. I like that. That's a great tip. That's a great tip. I know we like doing that at various places. We don't always go in and get with the mass at the in front of the castle or wherever they're building for the fireworks. We just like to watch them off in the distance, and
Right.
that sometimes is good enough for us. So that's
Because you can
great.
still hear the music. You can still see the fireworks.
There are actually some viewpoints where you can see them better than you can in the
I
park.
I know, but I guess now the new show, they do light up a lot
Yes.
of Main Street. So
Yeah, that is the
they
one
are
that
giving
they're-
that up a little bit.
They are trying to lure you more in there because of that.
The train
fact.
station's a good place too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you so much for joining us again. You've been a wonderful guest. These stories are
Absolutely.
fascinating. I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah.
It's been my
Great.
pleasure.
So, again, our guest has been Nicole. She was a VIP tour guide and hostess at the Disneyland Resort, and boy, so much fun. So much fun. So, thank you for joining us. We really hope we can talk with you again sometime soon. So thank you for listening to the Hyperion Adventures podcast. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. You can listen to our podcast on SoundCloud. You can listen to us on Stitcher. If you get iTunes or Google Play, you can subscribe to us. Whenever we have a new episode out, it'll go right to your phone or your device. You won't even have to hunt us down. You can find us there. You can go to our website, HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. Please find us, and if you have some friends out there that love Disney just like you do, tell them about us. But until we talk again, please have a magical week, and we look forward to talking with you in the future.